Hello everyone and welcome to the first Nebulous tournament. As we have 6 teams today playing in a Swiss style tournament in this lovely bracket. 12 people playing it out over 3 rounds to see who will be the first Nebulous champion. We have 3K fleets on 3 different maps, in each round a different map. We will start on Aurora, and we will jump into the first multiplayer game in a second. And we go in. Game starts with some of the battleships moving in. And as you can see here, both sides have most of their ships up on top, with one ship, the G1 Fuzz, being down here. What does this lovely ship bring? Is it an E warship? No, it's just... Oh, it's a torpedo corvette. Okay. So I'm guessing it plans on some sneaky stuff. Whilst on the other side, we have a fleet with quite some beam destroyers going around here. Whilst over here, 2 more beam destroyers with 1 heavy cruiser going around. On the other side, 1 battleship with beams together with another battleship with beams and guns. Which is interesting, as battleships just got nerfed in a patch. So let's see how they will perform now. Some light corvettes with guns as well. Are they all the same? It seems to be like that. Some point defenses and some guns. So that will be an interesting battle. Beam destroyers versus beam battleships. And a heavy cruiser for some corvettes, I guess. Question is, will anyone split off for capturing some points? I guess we have one of the J1 Fuzz going down to capture Delta. Should be interesting. There's over here. We got destroyer with a beam and some guns. Beam always really sensitive to taking damage when you have it activated, but it also obviously deals a lot of damage. But if you fly forward to an enemy, the biggest target you give the enemy is your beam, which is always a bit of a trouble for destroyers. That's why you always want to have at least some repair teams here in these ships, because if you lose your beam, that's a big loss. And maybe you want to fly sidewards to your enemy even, giving them maybe a bit bigger target, but allowing for protecting your beam a bit better. Because the experience I had with beam destroyers is, if they get under fire, like 8 times out of 10, the first thing to die is the beam. Which is kind of annoying. Beam battleships not quite having the same problem, but they are also easier to hit and a bit slower. Whilst the first D point is captured by this small little corvette. And this is torpedoes, right? This is a... yeah, pretty sure. These are torpedoes. Question is, who can spot for these torpedoes? I don't... Is there a spotlight on any of these? These have a lot of point defenses. Jammer. Auroras. A lot of Auroras. The missiles will be tough to use against these battleships. Especially as the other fleet doesn't have too many missiles themselves. They have some. Okay. Quite a lot of secondary batteries. Not as many point defenses on this battleship, but they seem to stick close together. And with point delta already captured for them, they don't need to split up. they capture 2 points, especially as they ticked first. It's up to the enemy to capture more points. And the fleet over here sticks together for now, so they will only capture 1 point. As the battleships are on the way to B, this might become quite interesting. Yeah. Yeah, this is... This is this game where you can customize all your stuff. Kismaki. Well, yeah, some missiles on these ships. To tell you a secret, this is one of the starter task forces. Because Aris said this is the fleet he had the most success so far with. And I agree with him that this is quite a good fleet. Like, Task Force Ash is quite solid. And it's interesting, even though the enemy has 2 battleships, the long-range fire advantage goes to the Sea Shark, because there's only 5 guns here. Oh no, there's... Actually, it's perfectly even, because this one also has 2 gun turrets. Or a double gun turret. So it's 7 guns versus 7 guns in the long-range engagement. It's 5 beams versus 5 beams as well. Like, this one has 3 beams, this one has 2 beams. Also on the other side there are 5 beam destroyers. So the fleets are pretty equal in their weaponry. As also the amount of guns on these is quite equal to the amount of guns on the destroyers. And with the latest nerf to survivability of battleships, we will have to see how this works out once these 2 fleets meet each other. I'm pretty sure the update is up already, which makes this fleet even more interesting. Whilst over here, the Aris is flying around. The Aris fleet is flying around. Noble Arrow. They will fly into Alpha in a second. Destroyers are not that quick, unlike their real-life counterparts. Destroyers in this game are actually on the lower end of the fleet speeds. But the J1 Fast is going all out for conquest mode. Capturing point C now. And this puts a lot of pressure on these forces over here. Because having 3 points ticking against you means that you are on a bit of a timer. Not just due to the time limit, but because this will tick up to 1000 points quite quickly now as well. They will get point alpha, and unlike in Steel Division, points always tick. It's not the difference in points that you get points for. It's if you have 1 point, you get that 1 point in tick. If you have 3 points, you get the tick of all 3 points. Ticking up to 1000. So to stop the enemy from getting points, you have to take all their points away. I can't... There's no way of seeing who sees what. So sadly you can't switch into the perspective of one team or the other. From what I know. If you... if I'm wrong on that, please let me know in chat. But I'm pretty sure you can't switch the perspective. Whilst over here, the beam destroyers get into position. Okay. Forces moving on over here. And it seems like these ships are getting quite close. We also don't see ranges, but I think one of these is 1000 meters? No, 2000 meters. guess 1000 meter? I guess one circle is 1000 meter. Yeah. So these ships get into each other's range now. And the first missiles are flying. But they're flying towards the one with a lot of auroras. So point defenses coming up. Ooh! But some missiles will hit. Some missiles will hit. Others will fly by. But at least first damage has been achieved. Beams now going out though. And the 3 beam destroyers here are a bit cut out of in the open. As the Sea Fleet is a bit behind. And this one already got hit hard by a beam. Now it's beaming back onto the battleship, which is now getting hit hard by missiles. Heavy damage onto this battleship. I expected the point defenses to be a bit better. No ripostes on any of this ships. So point defenses is all they got. And wow, this battleship might be quite heavily hit now. It's still moving. It's still not surrendered. But it's heavily hit. And the other one down below also will get hit by some missiles. This is a really good start of the engagement for our guys in blue, who now will fire with all their guns onto the enemy. I would say the Golden Tail might be out of action with its beam, as it got hit by a beam directly into its own beam, but it still has its guns to fire at least, which it should focus onto some of the smaller ships. Yes, it does, because it can't really penetrate the armor of the battleship. That task is up to the heavy cruiser and the beams. And we already have the first battleship going down. The J1 Venom is going down. The J1 Stuart, J2 Stuart is the only battleship standing. And this is quite the action. Okay. Beams going up into the second battleship now. And this is not looking good for the J's. J1 and J2 under heavy fire. And this battleship here seems like it has taken a hell of a lot of damage as well. And oh my god, the first battleship exploded. Luckily, these ships were just out of range. Well, one of the corvettes got fried there. And this is not looking good at all. This is not looking good at all for these battleships. The missile barrage was so much more effective than I expected it to be, as I expected the Auroras to easily deal with it. But I mean, it was a short range barrage, so the Auroras couldn't really fire onto their full range. And the ambush here worked out just fine. Coming around from Alpha. And now the beam destroyers are just bullying this battleship. They're trying to defend themselves, but it doesn't look good at all. Formation is still held by the corvettes as well, but there's just so much fire raining down on them. Trying to deal with the heavy cruiser, but I would say this is the wrong target. You need to... The heavy cruisers, it has 7 guns, which will deal damage, but I would say the damage output of every single one of these destroyers in this under range with the beams is higher. And they are also easier to kill, so you should focus onto these destroyers, I would say. Beam is on the heavy cruiser now, and they still have 3 points. If they could split up better and maybe go for some more points, they might be able to make it into the long run. Well, it's overhaul. Here, the J2 Stuart gets hit. White Shark will hit the J2 with all its guns. Guns still active, even though it got hit by the beam. So the beam didn't hit any of the vital systems, it seems like. Which is really bad news for the Stuart. We'll get another beam in though. But only one of the beam turrets seem to be still active. So I'm not quite sure if the light on means it's still active. Or if that's just the ship is still alive. Because otherwise I'm pretty sure this one could at least fire onto the destroyer over here. Maybe it's trying too hard to get onto target onto the heavy cruiser. It's a really interesting gunfight here. I would say the steward is in trouble. There's another beam is going down onto it. Actually, two beams hitting it in the frontal section. And Boxer is now getting secured by one of the destroyers. And the torpedo frigate is not in a position yet. Where is it actually? Yeah, the J1 Fuss is trying to come around. If this hits the heavy cruiser hard, maybe the battle becomes a bit more interesting again. Or one of the destroyers. But it might be too late. It might be too late. The heavy damage coming in from all the beams might be able to take this battleship out of commission relatively soon. Beam destroyers keep the action up. The secondary batteries here now will try to deal with the destroyers. They might be able to take out the beam here. They hit in the beam section quite well. Ooh, and now the beam ship comes in. Torpedoes detected, but riposts on the way. Riposts, though, get shut down by the point defenses. But so do the torpedoes by Auroras. So this didn't work out just yet. The White Shark might have to maneuver, though, as it is not in a good position to fire onto the battleship currently. And the first of the destroyers goes down as it got beamed away. The Noble Arrow might need to come around to help from the rear. The Abriled is going around as well. I'm not quite sure what its goal is. But the little corvette doesn't really have anything to fight with. It only can jam. And yeah. We see the first casualties. Beam hitting this destroyer as well. Hitting it in its beam. Heavy cruiser hitting one of the corvettes. More riposts versus torpedoes. Getting one of the maces. Getting the second one of the maces. Point defense gets the last one. And oh my god, this is really sword fight action going on here. Boarding action is not in the game yet, guys. You don't need to get this close. Ooh, this is interesting. As they're pushing each other into alpha. And the other destroyers split up to go for more point captures. Which might be a good idea, but might be a bit too late, as the other team already has captured quite a lot of points and it's already at 376 points. I'm not quite sure if it was a good idea to split up the destroyers. Keeping this one alive for sure helps you with capturing points later. But I feel like with a bit more beams, you could have taken out the J2 Stalwart completely. But now you might lose all your destroyers to it. Second destroyer goes down. And we have a... Oh wow! Which ship exploded? Which of these ships exploded? Was it the Frank? Which of these... Yeah, I think it was the Frank. But just fried all the ships inside of this battle. This is just carnage. This is just pure carnage. All of these ships got roasted by the reactor explosion next to it. The J1 Fuss heavily damaged as well. Under heavy fire is taken out by the heavy cruiser. Heavy cruiser versus beam battleship. With only one beam active though. But that beam already took out quite a couple of destroyers. The gun turret on top also still in action. And the beam down below is the really risky one. He's firing APs, it seems like, as he overpenetrated the J2 spinner here. The heavy cruiser is, that is, the White Shark. The White Shark. Ah, no. Guess it was just a weird hit. And yeah, these big guns hitting a corvette deal quite a lot of damage. But another beam turret is active, hitting the White Shark from the top. And you can't take too many beams with a heavy cruiser. You can take quite some, but at some point you will yield the pressure. Well, point C and D will be captured by the blue team, which would put it up on top when it comes to scoring points. So the idea of taking out all the small ships is not a bad one in my book, because the battleship can only capture so many points. Well, it's over here now. Beams hit each other. The Noble Steward did hit the spinner with a beam, but at the same time got hit by the battleship with a beam as well. But you can capture more points with the destroyers than with the battleship. So you will win in the long run, as long as you avoid fighting afterwards. If you kill all the small little ships, and this one is a gunner. So he might not know that yet, yeah. He's kind of overkilling it. You can't see it from the leakage of the drive, that this is a ship not worth shooting at anymore. And from this explosion you for sure will see it. Another ship did go up in flames. And the J1 spinner is down as well. Alpha still contested, which puts it at a +3 now for the blue team. No points being scored by the orange team anymore. And the first missile salvo, I would say, is what won the game. And by stopping the torpedoes of the fuss, they secured the victory maybe. As now the guns are turning onto the battleship, and the battleship is the last combatant standing. Yeah. We have another, okay. Yeah, put it in. Ferryman is in the tournament as well. But we have the last fight of the Steward here. We have the last fight of the Steward. Heavy fire coming in from up top. Steward fighting onto the Noble Arrow. But it is outgunned now, I would say, as all the guns here are still firing. And we have still 2 destroyers on the map for the blue team and a little corvette for capturing sneaky points. Oh no, we have actually 3 destroyers. They split up all the 3 destroyers of Eris, whilst the sea fleet here stood around for fighting. Also, thanks for the gifted subs there. Damn, Black Knight coming in with some really amazing gifted subs. 2-5 lovely people. Much appreciated. Merci. As the Steward here gets killed off into smithereens. A lot. Larry the Fisherman, Yug Dog, 9 Mythos, and Simmer 85 got the gifted subs, so they can now spam all our lovely emotes. All our lovely emotes. J2 Steward is really getting pummeled here now, and I'm pretty sure it's next to going out of commission. Whilst the beam will hit the Airy Noble, so 1 turret is still active, but I'm not seeing how this battleship can capture enough points to win the game. They still are slightly ahead in points, but getting to go from one point to another in this game takes minutes. And then you have to still capture it and then go to the next one. So even if you would start capturing points now, the points of the blue team would take over and before he got there. Seems like the steward is hitting for B, but the White Shark's damage will come in eventually. Getting shot every 10 seconds or so by 7 big guns will take its toll eventually. Especially as it hits the drive currently, which will reduce the speed of the steward even further, which will reduce its capabilities of taking points even further. The Noble Arrow is taking the sacrifice here, it seems like, as it takes some beam hits. But the destroyer is also now firing with all their guns onto the steward. It might be that they lost their beams. This one still seems to be active. No damage seen around, no heavy damage at least seen around the beam. So it also aligns its beam right now. And yeah, the gold tail also still has its beam. And with beams and heavy guns firing onto this battleship, it will lose its functionality eventually. Even though it still has 2 beam turrets firing. One more hitting the Noble Arrow here. Second one now hitting the Noble Arrow as well. But as we can see, Harbriled is now hitting from below. Gold Tail is coming in from the getting hit hard. And now the blue team also has taken over in points. The first ambush was just so good. So good for the blue team. Taking one battleship out basically within the first 3 minutes of the action. Eliminating 2 beam turrets and 2 normal turrets from hitting you. With that salvo of missiles. And now in a heavy fight with the last one. The steward did fight a valiant fight. Taking out 2 destroyers already. But yeah, the loss of the Venom might just be too much. If the Venom would have survived with some repair teams active, a battleship can come back into service quite quickly. But with it exploding so early on, with its reactor going ballistic, there was no chance for that. Because battleships can take quite some damage, and they also have a lot of damage control teams. So if you can keep them alive, but now it seems like its drive is gone. And with that, blue team, the only thing blue team would have to do right now is just running. But they might as well just finish the job here. Yeah, it seems like now the beam turrets might be offline as well. Amazing. Can't say it any other way. And for it just being started into early access, it's just such a good game. One of the beam turrets still firing. So the Noble Arrow is taking even more damage. I'm pretty sure this is close to being evacuated as well. The second turret also still firing. How is this thing still alive? Getting hit by so many beams. Noble Arrow is eliminated. As you can see, radio communication is eliminated, but that doesn't really matter. Side turrets are destroyed. Beam turret in the front is destroyed. The gun turret is destroyed. But it seems like the 2 normal beam cannon still active. One thing I would like to see maybe in the future would be that you could give your ships a focus, like focus the engines, focus the gun turrets. of the enemy ship. As currently it's a bit tough. Like, you can, I guess, shoot onto the enemy from one angle, but especially against battleships, your ship just still shoots all over the place. Whilst the beam turret now tries to target the white shark up here. And this is not good news. But how the hell is the J2 Steward still alive? Really showing you that battleships, if you don't have missiles anymore, are just so tough to kill. And railguns are another good solution of killing them from afar, but yeah, railguns are not here. But there goes the J2 Steward. Okay, reactor explosion. And first victory here to Maddie and Aris in a really, really amazing fight versus Yogi and the Hookstar. GGVP. What a game number one. Yeah. What a game number one. I'm pretty sure the